like some guys just have no credibility in these guys that actually know the music so well. Really, they can just snap their fingers in a day and come up with like an alternate chords for
Yeah.
Frosty.
Hey, there you are.
Year,
Yes,
congratulations.
thank you.
Intro.
Thank you.
How are you adapting?
I'm enjoying it a lot.
Are you good?
Yeah, I'm busy. I mean, I'm never bored. How about you? How about you?
No, I got bored in the middle.
Yeah, so now I have
Yeah. It may not just
I
be
was
a
thinking last night, Sue and I were sitting there at dinner, I said, hey, you know what time of year it is? What are we not doing? We're not grading it either.
exactly. Yeah, I think about it. I see some friends of mine who said, "Hey, grades are in," and I said, "Yeah, mine were in 2 years ago."
A couple of years ago.
Yeah.
It was great.
It's really something, man. It's happening. It's great. I went to high school. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, they've been doing the program. You know, it's very difficult to run a program because it takes money and they have to have the right people in the administration to be able to afford to, you know, have them.
Congratulations, musician of the year.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I was just thinking when I was young, I played in the Mummers Parade in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
It was on New Year's.
Right. Yeah.
And if you didn't keep your horn warm, the slide would
It's exactly with all the oil or the lubricant. Yeah. It just cakes on. It's like, yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can't play too well that way.
It's very cool. You know, I'm just getting my legs.
Was that a moment? Being in percussionist, we're both, areas. It's like, wow, that's pretty cool.
I mean, there's a lot of jazz studies programs that don't have that. You know, like they don't have a major like
Good morning, everybody. Happy Love Sunday, the third Sunday of Advent. My name is Reverend Christopher Rowe. I have the pleasure and the honor of serving as the acting senior minister here in this place I call our Cathedral of Love and this Temple of Peace, also known as Fountain Street Church. No matter who you are, no matter where you are in life's journey or where you are physically, whether you've come here this morning in this beautiful sanctuary or you are joining us from home on our live stream, no matter what God you do or don't believe in, no matter who you are loved by or who you love, no matter how long you've been a part of this church or whether this is your first time, each of you and all of us have a place here in this special community where love and justice and equity and inclusion and faith, hope, and love are part of the shared work of this community. This is the third Sunday of Advent, so we will be lighting the love candle. And I also am aware that we come into this space with a complexity of emotions. This is a beautiful space, it's a special space, and yet we come in with the feelings of loss or lament or joy or eagerness. But whatever the reason for you being here and however you're feeling, please know that you have a place here. This morning I am so happy with all of the wonderful people that have come together to make this service possible. We have Karen Farmer on the organ again this morning. I'm so grateful for her gifts. We also have Robin Connell and the trio, and I also have their names. I promised I would get them all correct. We have Rob Hartman, Kevin Jones, and Paul Brewer with her. Thank you. We have the choir, and we also have special guests today, Patricia Clark. I am so excited. We got to spend some time with one another, and a little friendship was born in the process. So thank you for being here this morning. This morning, as we prepare our hearts for this hour of worship, I would like to share the poem Blessing of the Boats by the American poet Lucille Clifton with you. Let these words speak to your heart and let them open your soul for this hour of worship with one another. May the tide that is entering even now, the lip of our understanding, carry you out beyond the face of fear. May you kiss the wind, then turn from it, certain that it will love your back. May you open your eyes to water, water waving forever, and may you, in your innocence, sail through this to that. Welcome to Fountain Street Church. Welcome to worship this morning. Thank you for being here. The poet Rupi Kaur said, most importantly, love. Like it's the only thing you know how at the end of the day. All of this means nothing. This page, where you're sitting, your degree, your job, your money, nothing even matters except love and the human connection. Who you loved and how deeply you loved them. How you touched people around you and how much you gave them of yourself. Friends, the greatest commandment of them all, the commandment that goes beyond the reaches of just the Christian tradition and stretches into virtually all of the paths of enlightenment, and the commandment through which everything must be interpreted, is love. Love invites us. Love often challenges us. Love changes us, and of course, love shapes us. Love is both intimate and connected. Love seeks a whole world of flourishing that goes beyond the walls of our cathedral hearts and temples within our souls. And its greatest manifestation is the human being most fully alive. This morning, in the sacred company of one another, we are being called to reflect on the barriers that keep us from living our own full capacity. We're being called to think of those things that keep us from being most fully alive. And we're being called to be aware of those realities that steal us away from the infinite power of love. So as we light this candle of love on this Advent morning, let its light call us to self-acceptance. Let its warmth ground our every moment with compassion for one another, and let its energy inspire us to a courageous and contagious form of love that manifests in ways we can't even imagine. It's during this part of the service where the young and young at heart are invited to go to the social hall, where we have some activities for those ones among us who wish to go there now. They, of course, are welcome to stay here, but there is a special time in social hall for them as well. Blessed be. Our ancient witness to us this morning comes as a fragment from the archaic Greek poet Sappho. Hear what the ancient witness is saying to all of us this morning. You may forget, but let me tell you this. Someone, in some future time, will think of us. Our contemporary witness comes to us from Jane Herschel's poem, I Said. Hear what the contemporary witnesses in spirit are saying to us this morning. I said I believed a world without you unimaginable. Now cutting its flowers to go with you into the fire.
Good morning to you all. I'd forgotten how incredibly beautiful the sanctuary is, and then to hear these wonderful voices and the music, I'm totally impressed. Really cheers my heart. I just wanted to, I'm going to just look at my timer because I don't want to overstay my, Chris said he would yank me off the, not really. I'm very honored to be asked to speak here today, and I wanted to thank Carol Koistra and also Reverend Christopher for the invitation. This year, 2021, is an especially challenging time to speak or write of love. I refer, of course, to the stupid pandemic and those fellow citizens who refuse vaccinations. Boy, I wrote vacations here. Ha. And put all of us at risk. I also refer to challenging segments of our population who rally behind a gun culture and Second Amendment rights, and others who are trying to overturn a constitutional right about women and their private medical decisions, a right established nearly 50 years ago. Nevertheless, I'm delighted that the Advent candle for love has been lit. And as Reverend Christopher said last week about hope, we must stand at the intersection of hope and hopelessness and choose hope. And I think it's very similar to love. We stand at an intersection. We could choose hope. I mean, we could choose love and not love. I hate to say the word hate. Let's not. But we must choose love and do that over and over again. So my title is Opening Your Heart, One Path to Love. A friend recently had literal open heart surgery, bravely and courageously. It sounds like a terrible ordeal. What I offer instead, I think, is simpler, a non-surgical, non-invasive way to increase your chances for having experiences with love. No doubt many things I'll say will not surprise you if you're a reflective person at all, and certainly reflection is part of what you do here in this house of worship. You probably already know what activities and experiences cause your heart to open a bit. I've sat in these pews and felt my heart open, especially to music and to singing and to fellowship. So let's begin today. Ours is a journey into poetry, and these poems that I'm going to get to are my offerings for today. I think usually you don't look at devices, but Chris has promised me that you have poems, and if you want to look at a device and look at the poems, that will be fine. If I don't get to all of the poems, and I doubt that I will get to them all, I would encourage you to read the others at home and to consider how they fit with my remarks today. Poetry is certainly similar to prose and to some nonfiction in terms of taking a reader into an experience, though I would contend lyric poetry is the most concentrated of the genres. A poem doesn't offer a thesis and a proof of something that happened. Instead, it takes us into an experience. Physically, we inhabit an experience, and therein lies its power. So let me shuffle just a second here. I didn't want to use my computer. I wanted to have the poems in front of me. This is a Michigan poet, a black Detroit poet you might know, Robert Hayden. He lived from 1913 to 1980, so he's really a contemporary poet. And I think this poem really fits for today. It's called Those Winter Sundays. Sundays, too, my father got up early and put his clothes on in the blue-black cold. Then, with cracked hands that ached from labor in the weekday weather, made banked fires blaze. No one ever thanked him. I'd wake and hear the cold splintering, breaking. When the rooms were warm, he'd call, and slowly I would rise and dress, fearing the chronic angers of that house, speaking indifferently to him who had driven out the cold and polished my good shoes as well. What did I know? What did I know of love's austere and lonely offices? I want to linger over this poem at some length, not that I don't know that you know how to read a poem and understand it, but I think it's important with poems to say at the outset and approach them with openness. What do I notice here? And let's start right at the top. Students will tell me, oh, I never read the title, and I'm like, no, don't do that. Let's read the title, Those Winter Sundays. So a speaker looking back and a grouping, those winter Sundays, very appropriate. Winter's a tough time. It would be a different poem, those summer Sundays, those summer Tuesdays. But these were a group, those winter Sundays. And if you have the poem, you could look down and count the lines. There's 3 stanzas, but there's 14 lines. That might chime in your head with poems that you know, and the form, the sonnet, probably the most well-known form of all for poetry. And usually, love poem. That's interesting. That tells us something. Coming out of the Italian and the English Renaissance. Now, you'd look too and you'd say, well, but this poem doesn't rhyme. Okay, I'll grant you that. Robert Frost, who spoke here once, I think only once, I have a tape because they sold it for a while here. And does anyone else have that tape of Frost? Yeah, I see. He sounds really old. I think it was shortly before he died in 1963. Well, he's famous for having said free verse poetry is like playing tennis with the nets down. Pretty funny. And okay, I'll grant him that. But I think, although it's different from a metered and rhyming poem, there are more nets than just having those. And I think it's worth looking at this poem craft-wise. It will also help us see how the poem yields and how the speaker experiences love, and then we do from reading the poem. So again, at the top, Sundays 2, my father got up early. Well, don't you love poetry when the situation is clear? You're not at lost. And I think people fear poetry because they think that's going to happen and there's going to be a test. No test. But we know right then this speaker is a child of this father, obviously. Sundays 2, my father got up early. And usually what we say is the speaker of the poem is probably the same gender as the poet, unless there's some other indication in the poem that the speaker is a woman. So a son here, looking back, Sundays 2, and put his clothes on in the blue-black cold. Boy, we know what that's like, don't we, here in Michigan? Then with cracked hands that ached from labor in the weekday weather. So this man, now we're getting a portrait, a sketch of who this guy is. He works outside, doesn't he? And he works every day, and he works hard. He probably has no health insurance. And on weekends too, Sundays too, he gets up early. He's a regular getter-upper in the morning. I'd wake the speaker, a boy. We don't know how old he is. The poem doesn't say, but he's not 3. He's old enough to have this experience, and he says, I'd wake and hear the cold splintering, breaking. Don't you hear wood being split or an old house that creaks and cracks as the house warms and it warms up? Slowly I would rise and dress, fearing the chronic angers of that house. Wow, now we're getting into some serious stuff. Speaking indifferently to him. I don't know if you remember being a teenager and waking up, and boy, it was Sunday too, and isn't that perhaps here slightly an issue? Who had driven out the cold and polished my good shoes as well. I remember those mornings. Remember that white shoe polish and the little brushes that you'd use to, I can remember that, and remember the tension sometimes of who's going to church wasn't really an option, and who's up, and who's ready, and what are we going to wear? So I think that tension is here, but I sense there's more. Going back to that line, no one ever thanked him. It's interesting. It doesn't say, I never thanked him. It's no one ever thanked him, as though there are more people in the household. But notice there's no mention of a woman, a wife. So we don't know. There's things we can't answer sometimes about poems. But no one ever thanked him, I think, is the saddest line here till the end, and also implies there are other people. And then this closing couplet. What did I know? What did I know? Now, why a repetition? Isn't that redundant? Why do you want to say that twice? What did I know? What did I know? I hope you hear it as a bell, as a tone, as a note of regret, a tolling of a bell, a tolling of a conscience, being guilty of taking his father for granted. Before that devastating last line, love's austere and lonely offices. If I could offer a recommendation for your poetry reading, and of course I will, I want to, because I love poetry, and I'm sad sometimes when students would say, oh, of all the genres, I hate poetry. And I think, what? Impossible. Impossible. But if you read a poem without expectation and without fear, and read it several times, and let it kind of roll around in your mouth, and feel the poem, and then even if you sense that there's something you might want to look up, it's really, really worth it to put that effort in. And if you do, it will yield an amazing amount of richness back to you. So I think love's austere and lonely offices, to me, my ear says, wow, do you know what austere is? Well, severe in manner or appearance. So this father, he was a tough one. He was a tough one to get next to, probably not an easy person to talk about his feelings. Yet we see from his actions, they prove his love, his attention. And then offices is particularly interesting. Yes, a place for business, but also plural, something whether good or bad, done for or to another. My good offices, the prescribed order or form for a service of the church for devotional use. Divine office, prayers, readings from Scripture, and psalms to be recited every day. So now I feel I'm in a new place here. Now the speaker, the writer, has elevated his father to the level of a priest, really, performing these daily offices. And there's such reverence and love and affection looking back. Do you sense that the Father's gone by this point as a reader? I can hardly see some of you, but I can. I'll call on people. No. That would be harsh. No, I know you know. It feels as though it's too late. It feels as though the Father is gone. I have no proof of that, but it feels too late in the tone here. It hurts. Even though I've read this poem a bunch of times, when I read it, it still hurts me to read it. And I think that tells you the power of particular poems. But I think you see, ultimately, it's hope and love that the writer has penned this for his Father. It's really never too late, is it? Never too late. And I wanted to say, too, that the path here for the speaker to his love, opening his love for his Father, is the physical details that take him into the body of the Father. Sundays, too, he got up early and put his clothes on in the blue-black cold. When you start to feel another person's body and how they feel the world, that's when you've gone out of yourself and you can feel love. There's a quote from the Russian writer Vladimir Nabokov. I don't know where I got this quote either. I read it somewhere. Caress the divine details. And he's offering advice to writers, and I really feel his advice. You need to put those details in and take us into the person so that we can feel with you along this journey. And when you do, it unleashes the love that he feels for his Father. Maybe not at the time, but now. And lovely to end with a question, too, because it leaves it quite open. What did I know? What did I know? I guess the answer is I didn't know much, but I was learning, and I'm learning now, and I'm going to forgive myself. Switching tracks a bit, I want to go to the third poem that you had in your packet. It's a very small little poem by Langston Hughes called Island. And it's so different from the other poem, you'll say to me, where are the divine details here? And they aren't here. This is an 8-line poem, quite abstract in a lot of ways. But listen to it. Island. Wave of sorrow, do not drown me now. I see the island still ahead somehow. I see the island and its sands are fair. Wave of sorrow, take me there. Some poems rely on the voice of the speaker, and I hear, hope you do, such pain in this person's voice, regardless of the situation, that I'm rocked for that person. I've been there too. You probably have. Wave of sorrow, take me there. So again, to read poems, a daily poem perhaps, and find different tones and different experiences, I think it's part of our task, being alive and being human, is to experience this. I think poems can help us. There's a website. Of course there's a website. Isn't there one for everything? Poets.org. And it's not poems.org. That's a different animal altogether. But Poets.org is the Academy of American Poets. And their website is fantastic. And they have a poem a day option that you can sign up for. And they have different poets curating it each month. So you get quite a medley of poems. And I would encourage you to sign up and have these sent to you. It's kind of fun. Another poem then, and I'm going to check my time. I think I'm good. How to Apologize. Another poet, Alan Bass, lives out in California. I hope you enjoy this. How to apologize. Cook a large fish. Choose one, with many bones, a skeleton you will need skill to expose. Maybe the flying silver carp that's invaded the Great Lakes, tumbling the others into oblivion. If you don't live near a lake, you'll have to travel. Walking is best and shows you mean it, but you could take a train and let yourself be soothed by the rocking on the rails. It's permitted to receive solace for whatever you did or didn't do. Pitiful, beautiful human. When my mother was in the hospital, my daughter and I had to clear out the home she wouldn't return to. Then she recovered and asked, incredulous, "How could you have thrown out all my shoes?" So you'll need a boat. You could rent or buy, but for the sake of repairing the world, build your own. Thin strips of western red cedar are perfect, but don't cut a tree. There'll be a demolished barn or downed trunk if you venture farther. And someone will have a mill, and someone will loan you tools. The perfume of sawdust and the curls that fall from your plane will sweeten the hours. Each night we dream 36 billion dreams. In one night, we could dream back everything lost. So grill the pale flesh, unharness yourself from your weary stories, then carry the oily, succulent fish to the one you hurt. There is much to fear as a creature caught in time, but this is safe. You need no defense. This is just another way to know you are alive. A very different kind of poem, and I hope it takes some leaps and has some weirdnesses in it, which I quite admire. Quite different from the Robert Hayden poem. And I think a lesson about loving the self, forgiving, right? What'd she say? Beautiful, pitiful human. Let's not forget in that journey of love that it's really important to be kind to yourself for whatever transgressions you've done. And I want to close with two poems of mine, not to be egotistical, but to share some of myself and to let you into, I think, some expressions of love too. One is on a coast. I'm from the Pacific Northwest, and it's a saltwater coast. And the other, a poem really about small occurrences with our natural world and how we can learn to love those creatures too. So first, barnacle. The fisherman's bent in half on the tip of a promontory, a jacket, short pants, a grass skirt over the pants, no hat, tall socks with shoes, though I'm fearful he'll slip where below waves growl and snap. He's pulling in at least 4 lines, heavy with fish, one has to hope, and he's not alone. Nearby crouches a person down on his haunches, also holding lines. If the land's rocky, okay, but it looks fragile enough to break off. Soft ground with wet sod crumbling to pitch him in, if not both of them. Once we wandered far down Agate and Crescent Beach, stooping at tide pools, turning over rocks to find small gray crabs and touch anemones, fascinated by their pulse, heedless of tides. By the time we looked up, our path back was erased, water crashing in, spraying foam, and only through luck did we find a cut in the bluff where a path snaked down. We clambered up with sea salt biting at our heels. That was the day later on we hauled in a creature of the deep, strange to us, a purple spiny thing large as a cabbage we brought to the park ranger in a bucket. Sea urchin, he said mildly. It was a fearsome, beautiful thing, those spines dripping with the sea waving. I hope we let it go. My father and his father, me and who else? My brother Dan? Last seen on that shore, now washed away by waves of time, though memory has planted a barnacle here. And last, a smaller poem, again, the natural world, which we so much need. This is called Ragged. Warm wooden leg of a table, August sun, and the red admiral staying there, flexing its wings. Yellow pear tomatoes turning gold hour by hour, and the woods still green, but somehow more somber each day, though I try staying just here in this moment, breathing, watching, living. What part of us wants to measure or compare? This year against last year, this year's tomato yield over last. I lean back in the red chair, soaking up heat. I touch the dog's black, silky ear. We are specks in this speck of time. Tonight, the Perseids. We whirl together just for now, this dance, this stardust, light on a wing. Thank you.
Now, out of the night, soft as the dawn, into the light, this child, innocent child, soft as a fawn, this child is born, one small heart, one pair of eyes, one work of art, here in my arms. Here he lies, trusting and warm, blessed this morn. One small heart, one pair of eyes, one work of art, here in my arms. Here he lies, trusting and warm,
Thank you, Robin. My friends, as we prepare ourselves for this time of meditation and prayer and quiet and stillness, we have one more poem at the curation and request of Patricia, and that is Failing and Flying by Jack Gilbert. Please let this be your invitation to our prayer this morning. Everyone forgets that Icarus also flew. It's the same when love comes to an end or the marriage fails and people say they knew it was a mistake. That everyone said it would never work. That she was old enough to know better. But anything worth doing is worth doing badly. Like being there by that summer ocean on the other side of the island while love was fading out of her. The stars burning so extravagantly those nights that anyone could tell you they would never last. Every morning she was asleep in my bed like a visitation, the gentleness in her like antelope standing in the dawn mist. Each afternoon I watched her coming back through the hot, stony field after swimming, the sea light behind her and the huge sky on the other side of that. Listen to her while we ate lunch. How can they say that the marriage failed? Like the people who came back from Provence when it was Provence and said it was pretty but the food was greasy. I believe Icarus was not failing as he fell, but just coming to the end of his triumph. Will you please pray with me? Spirit of love, we welcome you. We celebrate in this season your coming to abide with and within us. And in this season, we remember the ways in which you have faithfully been companioning us since the beginning. It was you, great love, that wove all of life together. Your presence is painted across all of creation and throughout history over and over and over again. Your Spirit has taken on flesh in the ordinary and in the extraordinary, in the invulnerability of infants, in the fierce proclamations of the prophets, and in the endearing hope of all who persevere against evil. Where there is grief and where there is holy rage, where there is fear and where there is sacred imagination, your presence, O love, has been there across the ages and over and throughout the generations. And it is that Spirit we feel with us this morning in this sacred hour of worship as a community. For those who come into this space with joy, love is there. For those who have entered this cathedral with grief on their hearts, love is there. For those who carry deep sadness and pain, love is there. And for all who gather with imagination and wonder and glee, so too, love is there. And so it is in your presence, the presence of love that is within, among, and around all of us, that we lift up those complexities and we hold them to our hearts. We are grateful for this time of worship with one another. We are grateful for the beloved gift of this community and this cathedral of love. And we are grateful for the ever-present Spirit that continues to reveal a more loving and compassionate and just world in front of us. So may it be so. Amen. Thank you, choir. We have just a couple of announcements this morning. This week is actually Gary Eberly's class on Tuesday evening. I was so excited to promote it last week, and then I saw his furrowed brow kind of going all over, and I was like, oh, whoops. So please join Gary Eberly's wonderful interactive class on Tuesday night. I think we're looking at incarnations this week, Myths on Incarnations. It's a really cool and dynamic class, so that Zoom link will go out on Tuesday morning for anybody who wishes to participate. I also want to lift up, because it's time to think about it already, that we have 2 Christmas Eve services, as has been the tradition for a little while now. 5 o'clock will be an all-ages service. We're trying to keep it to 30 to 40 minutes for the young and young at heart, and there will be some music, and there will be some interactive readings, as well as some storytelling. And then at 9:30, we will have our traditional Christmas Eve service here in this beautiful space. At the 5 o'clock, we'll be in here as well, and it will be just as beautiful, but that will be complete with the work of the choir, and we'll have a quartet from Ed Clifford and Jonathan Took, and Jean Bailey will be doing some beautiful readings, and it should just be a wonderful and sacred hour of celebrating the peace candle that will be lit that night. And so I hope you're able to make to one of those as well. And that will also be virtual. So that is something that has come out of COVID that has been another gift to us, is that we can have people participate who couldn't before. I believe that's it for my announcements. And so I want to again lift up everyone who made this beautiful service possible. Thank you so much, Karen Farmer, for the organ today. Thank you so much to the choir and to Austin and to Margie. Thank you so much to Patricia Clark. Thank you to our jazz musicians, and I'm going to read them again: Robin, Rob, Kevin, and Paul. Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody else for being with us today. As our blessing, I want to tell a little story, and it won't be long. So December 12th is my ordination anniversary. It is 6 whole years ago, which I realized that means I have served here for just over 3, which means I was a baby when I came here in ordination speak. So first off, thank you for your love and generosity in putting up with baby Reverend Christopher at the time. It is an honor and a privilege to have been here. Now I can say officially for the majority of that amount of time. But that's not the real point of that. I share that day with the feast day of Our Lady of Guadalupe, and that was on purpose, December 12th. It's one of my favorite parts of the Catholic stories and the Catholic tradition. And for those of you who aren't familiar, I'm going to tell a really zippy fast version of it, my favorite parts. It takes place in Mexico, and somebody named Juan Diego was working out in the fields, and he was indigenous to that area in the 1500s, and Mary, in darker skin, not in Euro skin, appeared to Juan Diego. And the bishop didn't believe him and thought, oh, this is not real. She would have appeared to one of the other bishops or a priest or somebody with higher status. And so he went back for some proof, and he found these beautiful, colorful flowers that would not have existed in December in that part of Mexico, and he took them back, and they believed him. It's a beautiful story, and I always like to say that even if it isn't your truth, even if that's not how your paradigm sees the world and spirituality, there is still truth in it, and it is still someone's truth. And it's a beautiful truth because it reminds us that God and Mary, the mother of the incarnate love, was on the side of all people, including the oppressed and the poor and the vulnerable. And so I love this story where the same woman who said yes to flipping the paradigm and no to an unjust world also said, I am with you, to the poor and to Juan and to everyone else. And she is a patron saint of so much, especially for love, compassion, and injustice. So why am I telling you that? Gosh, because on this Love Sunday, your blessing and your benediction is simple. As we go forward carrying the warmth and the energy and the light of the love candle, be a Guadalupe. Show up. Be love in the world. Stand on the side of the oppressed. Incarnate yourself in spaces that need you and need this church the most. Be a Guadalupe. Go in love. I love you. I love this community. Thanks for being with us.